Now, blackmail charges brought against construction union bosses John Setka and Sean Reardon have been dropped by Victorian prosecutors. You might have heard that extraordinary news yesterday afternoon. Now, the backdown has raised questions about the decision to charge the two men in the first place, with John Setka claiming it was part of a conspiracy targeting unions. ACTU Secretary Sally McManus joins us now in the studio to discuss this. Sally McManus, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, this is an extraordinarily emboldening outcome and decision for the union in particular, and also for your organisation.
Well, it is, but on the other hand, these two men have gone through 3 years of facing the potential of going to jail for 15 years, so that's pretty serious. They've both got children, they've both got families, and that's been a really difficult thing for them. And of course, they've had their names, along with the trade union movement's name, dragged through the mud over this, in something that turned out to be not true at all. And so we think there's very serious questions to be answered about the role of Tony Abbott and Erica Betts, questions to be answered about the law firm that Michaelia Cash came from, Freehills. We think that there's a range of questions to be asked about the conduct of the Royal Commission and about the role of the police.
So how do you now plan to go on asking those questions? Will there actually be legal action brought on by those individual men, by the union itself or by the ACTU?
Well, to be direct about it, we were really quite shocked at the extent of what came out in court the last couple of days. The fact that it's been withdrawn is really extraordinary. They withdrew it even before the evidence had all been finished. And the evidence that had come out was pretty extraordinary from our perspective. So it seems to be that lots of people are involved in getting it to where it was. Remember, the media were tipped off when these guys were arrested in front of their families. So what we're going to do is carefully look at all of that, and we will do what is necessary to get to the bottom of what happened.
So that's potentially legal, some kind of legal action you're thinking, Sally McManus?
Potentially that, potentially some form of inquiry, some form of whatever, will get to the bottom of it. But there does need to be justice also for those men who've been through this.
Wrapped around that, and it's clear that, of course, when it came to potential criminal charges, there was no appetite for that, perhaps even no basis at all. But wrapped around it, of course, are the fines that the unions had to pay, the successful civil action that's been brought against it. It's been described, the CFMEU, by one judge as the most recidivist corporate offender in Australian history. So notwithstanding what was decided yesterday, there are still those problems around the union. How's the ACTU requiring the CFMEU to clean up its behaviour and act?
Well, understand what this is about. This is about safety at a particular site. And if we talk about all these issues, the union has been fined by about 5 different bodies, $10 million. And what for? Protesting for proper safety standards. That's it. That's the whole point of this whole dispute. At the same time, that this same company, 3 people were killed at one of their building sites, and they were fined $250,000. There's something wrong in our country where working people and their unions are fined this amount of money for protesting for safety, not for their own gain, for nothing. At the same time, the banks are doing what they're doing, and what's happening to them? Well,
we'll find out what happens to them, because we don't yet have recommendations from the Royal Commission there. But staying on that topic, though, it was interesting to me to hear talkback callers on ABC Radio in Melbourne yesterday describing a real culture of bullying and control at sites that are controlled by the CFMEU. Now, these were partners of people working in the industry, and most of these were women, which was interesting to me, and that's what they're describing. Aren't those workers, aren't they entitled to protection in their workplace as much as your union members?
Oh, absolutely. Every single worker is entitled to protection against bullying and unfair treatment. But you're asking me to accept that those callers, that we don't know who they are, that's true. They've got plenty of ways to go about bringing that up, and we will condemn it, absolutely condemn it.
Do you really believe that the no CFMEU members have engaged in any of that behaviour that's been repeatedly described as troubling to so many?
Yes, I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
To be direct with you, I do not believe it. I don't believe it because I know that union. I know what that union does in terms of encouraging women onto workplaces in a very male-dominated industry. I know it because, remember, the union movement's full of very strong, feisty women, and we don't put up with stuff like that. We don't put up with cultures like that. We would not stand by and let that type of thing happen. I think there's been a concerted campaign against the CFMEU by the government, and by association, the rest of the trade union movement gets caught up in that. And this is really about their political campaign against Bill Shorten, and we are not happy. Not happy is a small way of putting it. We are furious that this has happened. We're furious about the Royal Commission and the fact that this has got to this point, and the way that the government uses the media to defame people.
All right, a couple more questions before I let you go. The unions launched a really bitter and very strong ad campaign against the government in its Once a Banker ad. We might be able to roll you a little bit of that now. Will the CFMEU play a key role in Labor's election campaign when a federal election is finally called?
Well, I'm not sure about what the CFMEU will do. That will be up to them. But certainly the trade union movement have made a decision. We're going to fight for better job security and for fairer pay. And we're asking all political parties to support that. We do not think the Liberal Party will. We think the track record's the opposite. So, of course, we'll be involved in that campaign because we want to actually change the laws.
And you've got an unlikely friend in the Reserve Bank. It's suggesting that a boost to the minimum wage is unlikely to cost jobs. An interesting paper from the Reserve Bank yesterday. Does that make your push for a $50 a week rise more likely now, do you think?
Well, we've been arguing this for a long time because there's lots of economists that have been slowly saying, based on the evidence, that wage rises, even significant ones for low-paid workers, don't lead to job losses. They actually lead to jobs growing because working people, low-paid workers, spend that money. So the Reserve Bank is backing in really what mainstream economists are now saying, and we do think it supports our call for higher minimum wages.
Let's see how it goes. I'm glad you joined us, Sally McManus.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.